Oh, hello? Little girl, do you live around here? Hey, please don't run away. Wait, we need directions. What? Do you expect us to learn everything from the podcast? Hey, actually, that's not a bad idea. Bulbasaur, use Vine Whip to press play.
Hey, I'm Veronica Taylor.
And I'm Rena Taylor.
And this is
The Trainer's Guide. Today's episode,
Abra and the Psychic Showdown.
Well, we're at episode 21.
I think that intro was one of the best ones yet. It really incorporated so much.
It did, actually. You know what? And that we didn't decide to have him falling over the cliff and yelling, "Wah, whoa!"
That was one of my favorite parts of the episode, though. I will admit.
Was it?
Yeah,
I love that too.
I love any time you do Ash falling down from
and then
heights.
He gets caught by the Vine Whip, and he's like, "Ugh." He actually said, "Phew."
I know. He said "phew" twice, actually.
I know.
He said "phew" and then "phew." But
hey, it's all in the script.
I know, but it was great. But I love he was really thinking so fast. I mean, that just goes to show that he's growing as a trainer.
We're getting ahead of ourselves in that. But if we're going to talk about that now, I will say, I thought he really came into his own in this episode. He really was, like you said, thinking fast on his feet. And he was able to really pivot a lot.
Agreed.
Mentally and physically.
That's so true.
He moved around a lot. Yes. He's a dancer, a real dancer.
Yes.
Well, just to go back to the top of the episode, we are still on our way to Saffron City. And much like in the very beginning, first episodes, we were in a dark forest. And by we, I mean our heroes.
Mm-hmm.
And they had lost their way, which is interesting that we're here basically in the middle of the season. And again, they are trying to figure out where they are and how to get out of this, much like we humans often hit these bumps in the road or moments where we have to take a step back and reevaluate. So I thought that was an interesting way to start the episode.
Yeah, and I feel like it kind of mirrors a lot of the themes, and what happens in this episode are very similar to the first episode, or at least that the vibe of the first episode. And yet we've come so far. Ash has got companions, people he's traveling with. He has a deeper bond with his Pokemon, a deeper knowledge of what's going on. So you can see how he attacks the situation once he has, once he knows a little bit more of like what he's doing. And yet he still doesn't know what he's doing, but you can really see the growth and how he approaches things.
Right,
in a
his
different
confidence,
way.
And his gumption, his stick-to-itiveness.
Yes. I do want to say, before we continue, we did get, thank you to everybody who sent in some great Poke wrap-ups for this week's episode. We also got an email. I think this has been really great. This is a good tradition that we're starting of listeners sending in things related to what we talk about on the pod. And this week, Nick sent us an email with a Poke wrap-up, but also with a link to an article about like a deep dive regarding the girl with the green ribbon that we talked about last week.
Yeah, where the story, she has the ribbon around her neck, and in case you didn't hear it, if it's untied, her head falls off.
Right.
So yeah, it turns out that story has been around for a very long time.
Yeah.
And told kind of the same way, but slight differences.
But this article cited that Alexander Dumas, who wrote The Three Musketeers, he wrote a story that had, the same kind of theme. And Washington Irving also had a story that involved, I think, a girl's head falling off.
Well, that was the Sleepy Hollow.
Yeah.
And the
oh my gosh, you're right.
Horseman.
Yeah.
So with heads falling off, I guess it's
that was just a sign of the times.
Yes,
People's
but
heads
also
were falling off left and right.
Heads will roll.
Yeah.
It's interesting, though, these creepy stories, and this is pretty much the creepiest
Yes.
episode ever.
Yeah. I think Sabrina's doll, either the doll is her green ribbon or the doll's hat. That's my thought.
Interesting. Or really, who is the doll?
Well, that's what that's what I'm thinking.
Technically,
I'm thinking there's something going on. If the doll leaves her side, will her head fall off? Or will something deeper inside her be
Change.
shed?
Or crack. Yeah.
Yes.
We don't know.
Oh,
We've
let's get
not
into
gone
it.
ahead. Okay.
Let's get into it.
Okay. We are, first of all, one of the best barbs, one of the best zingers that Misty and Ash exchange, where he's accusing her of getting us lost again. And she says, "You can't find yourself in a mirror." And he says, "You crack mirrors." And Brock is like, "Look, do you guys really want to stand here all day yelling at each other?" And they're like, "Yeah, we do."
Yeah.
It's hilarious. Those things are funny. I mean,
That is a classic. Yeah.
It is classic. We shouldn't be mean to each other in real life, but these are pretty funny.
Yeah.
I don't know. What's a nicer way to say these cuts? They're,
I find it admirable that both of them can think so fast on their feet.
That's right.
Because
that's right.
when I am faced with, coming a witty,
Retort.
comeback, yes, retort, I find that most of the time I just freeze. And then it's only later or hours later or even a second after sometimes I go, that would have been a good thing to say.
Do you think that's really, that's why we all have the voice memo on our phones now?
Totally.
So you can record that and then use it later.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good idea. I haven't thought about that, writing it down so I could use it on somebody else.
Yeah, or also dump it out of your brain so you make space for
That's
really
true.
good stuff, positive things to come in.
That's a good
all that
point
stuff
also.
that you wish you said, you could just record it and then it's in a locked vault.
Yeah.
In essence.
I do find, this is a bit of a tangent, but I do find sometimes that I found it specifically with watching Psych, that show, that after I would watch an episode of that, I would be funnier.
Funnier, yes, of course.
And it did, and to a degree where I was like, I'm, this was at an odd stage of my life when I was also doing a lot of other things. So one could say I was a bit burnt out or on the edge of burnout. But I sometimes, if I was about to do something or go to a job interview or something, I would watch an episode of Psych so I would be funny.
Yeah, it's like your warm up.
Yes.
Yeah, it gets your mind moving faster.
And this is kind of a show where, especially in this season, the writing is so good that I do find that after I watch it, I feel like, okay, I feel a little more recharged.
I think that's true. This episode especially, I felt that way.
Yeah.
Which is why, of course, we're not talking about it at all. We're just on tangents.
I know. But then my only ending of this tangent was that I was watching today, after I watched this episode, I was watching an episode of Endeavor, which is the murder mystery,
British murder mystery
prequel to Inspector Morse. Anyway, that show is very good, but very slow and not funny. And so I did have to I had to revisit my notes a little bit before we started recording this because I was not in the right headspace.
Right, you had to kind of ramp back up.
I had to get excited. Yeah. Anyway, I feel good now.
Okay, good. I'm glad. Well, so much like this.
But brooding could be similar to this episode too. This
perhaps,
has an element
but I was gonna say,
of brood.
I'm a little bit like Pikachu at this point where Pikachu is pulling on Ash's pant leg to say, look over there. Look over there. There's a strange, creepy girl there. Let's get on with things.
Steer this ship back on course.
Yes, that way.
Matey.
Quick.
Starboard.
And at
Starboard.
At that point, Ash goes running after the creepy girl who's laughing in a very creepy way. And he almost falls
creepy.
off a cliff. And that's where, as he's falling, he reaches for his Pokeball, throws it, gets out Bulbasaur, who saves him from Vine Whip. and then he gets pulled back up. It's really a fantastic moment.
It was so impressive.
It was.
Mm-hmm.
And then they finally get to Saffron City, where they're like, now this is a city. Because they've come through an arched a gateway.
But also, I mean, if you think back, they've been on like an island with weird mechanical creatures.
Yes.
They've been in another odd, like, islandy town. They've been in a forest. So finally they're getting...
You're right.
They're getting their feet on some
City.
concrete.
And yet it is empty.
Yeah, nobody's there.
As soon as they step over the threshold, it's like, you know those little, what are those snaps? They're the little, whatever it is that you throw on the ground and they pop, 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 pop. It's pretty much like that, like snaps being thrown at them. And these two gals in hula costumes come out.
Yes.
And
they say, welcome, you've won. Woohoo, you've won the prize of being the millionth and first, millionth and second, millionth and third visitors to Saffron City. So they go, let's take you to the prize room.
And not true to form, Ash is not so gullible at this. He's like, what are you talking about? How could we have won something? We just walked in. And they're like, well, you did. And then they go.
You did.
But,
he's like, okay.
All right. But then they get put on the warp tile.
Yeah.
Which is, again, strange.
Very.
And then they get popped into this room. So this whole episode is so weird and warped.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah, and even Team Rocket's costumes are better than ever.
Totally.
You really
Spoiler alert,
can't tell.
Those two ladies are Team Rocket, and they they teleport Ash, Misty, and Brock into this room using a tile on the floor. And they take Pikachu, and they basically, once the gang is in the room, they go, oh, it's us, surprise, and we've got Pikachu and all this kind of stuff. But it's kind of crazy because, their plan is pretty foolproof.
Team Rocket's plan?
Yeah. Yeah. That warp tile, so crazy. I really thought that would play more into the rest of the episode, but...
Well, even then, while they're going on and doing the motto, you have Ash, Misty, and Brock having tea.
Yes.
Sitting at a table that's just appeared. That whole thing is crazy. Meanwhile, Pikachu is bound and with tape over its mouth.
I know.
So it's this, everything is out of balance.
I know.
And then Ash is like, gross, they both kissed me. When he realizes, it's so funny.
It's hilarious.
I know.
I love that that Jessie never dresses up as a man. It's always James dressing up as a girl.
I know. I don't know if that happens. We can't look ahead.
Well, there's no way that we can know. There's no way for us to know what's ahead.
There's no way. We have no idea what's coming.
There's no way. There's literally no way we can find out.
No.
We just have to see.
Next week. Yes.
Yeah, we just have to see. We don't know.
But
I do know that I have not seen any of these episodes.
I'm just desperately pulling you back to this episode. Okay, so
there's too much.
Sabrina pops
Wait, can I say one
room.
other thing? Wait, can I say one other thing? How does Ash know which Pokemon is in which Pokeball? Because he's falling off the cliff, and he just throws, and he's like, Bulbasaur. But what if it was Squirtle?
I'm going to say two things. One, he just knows.
Yeah.
Okay, three things. Two, he places them in a particular order on his belt.
True.
And three, perhaps there is some sort of Braille-like indicator.
That's what I was going to say.
That's
what I was going to say. Maybe there's like a Braille that he engraves their name or something so he can feel it.
I'm not sure about that. But it would be nice if that were there.
Okay. Well, that's all.
But he has to intuit it, which is what this psychic episode is about. We all use our intuition to help us maneuver through our days, through our lives. And a lot of it is that trust your gut intuition. And so as a Pokemon trainer, you need to use that intuition. So in some ways, it's probably he just knows.
Yes. Everybody, as you're listening, bow down to the queen of circling back.
I know. I'm fully circling
That is
because
great.
Sabrina has shown up in the room with Team Rocket.
No, the little girl.
Oh, well, okay, yes, right, the little girl. We don't know who it is.
The little
girl
girl
with the
comes
bonnet.
and she takes Pikachu. She brings Pikachu into the little room with Ash, Misty, Brock, and then teleports them all outside the room. So they escape.
Right.
And she freezes Jesse and James.
Right, very important.
They're frozen. And so they get teleported out, and and it turns out that they get teleported right in front of the Saffron City gym. And so
Yes.
they're looking at it and they're going, this is interesting. And this mysterious bearded man jogs up behind them.
Jogs up.
And
Quite
goes,
interesting.
yeah, and he goes, you're going to the gym. You shouldn't. You can't defeat her. Anyway, and then he leaves.
And then they still go in. Yes, and
Yeah.
he jogs away,
Mm-hmm.
which very mysterious.
Very mysterious. And also, I was watching the episode fast forwarded a little bit or on high speed, and he's actually panting. So you can hear it. So it was really funny because he came up and he was like, you want to go to the gym?
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
And then runs away. It was hilarious.
Well,
I
that's
recommend
because
watching first
in the
at
old
regular
days,
speed, but
in the
it's funny.
old days, we got to do extra
Mhm.
things like that. You could breathe or run or,
Mhm.
all of that. So it was a lot of fun.
It really makes it.
Um,
But they
I
go
think
in.
it does. Yes.
They go in, and this is a gym. I find it interesting that it's Saffron City, but you get the Marsh badge, and it's psychic Pokemon. Like, none
Right.
of those things have anything in common. But
Not
the
that we know of,
gym-
and I should have looked into that because I could have found
guess.
something.
you would have found something
Mhm.
for next week.
Okay.
But the gym itself, you walk in, and it kind of looks marshy. Like the the ground kind of looks like
Oh.
water, and the columns in it
interesting.
looked like reeds. Anyway, it was a very interesting,
Oh,
it's a
that's
very
great.
interesting
See,
architectural
I'm thinking
design.
it looked, I thought it looked like an old theater kind of. And
Yeah.
so it's, again, up to your interpretation.
Totally.
And that also is psychic. You know,
Mhm.
how it gets into your psyche and you can kind of bend things to your will and to what you want it to be. But interestingly, all of these trainers were there training their mental powers.
So it's not only a gym, but it seems like it's a bit of a center for
Mhm.
doing this, which
For
is
the
actually kind of
psychic
crazy
arts.
because the
Yeah.
episode of Endeavor that I'm watching right now is about psychic abilities.
Well, you know what? We all have them, but we ignore them.
I know.
So
There's
you
still
have
time.
to train.
But according to
Open-
the bearded man, you have to be
Yes.
born with it. You can't learn it. So some of
I
us
don't know. I
might
think we
find
all
it
have
easier.
it.
I think some of us might find it easier to hone our powers than others.
Well, that's true.
But I think
That is
if
very
Ash has
true.
taught us anything, you can do it.
He taught us muscle over mind.
Right.
Because the one this mysterious foreign speaking
Who looks
man.
like an old, like Russian Gary.
Oh yeah, that's right, with very long hair.
Yeah.
He comes out and he's trying in vain to bend the spoon.
Yeah.
And Ash is like, let me see that. And then he just bends it with his hands, you know?
Right.
Ha ha ha, I got you. And then, which is not how it works, but
No, it's
they
a
get
little
taken
embarrassing.
in, and who is up on the big stage? But that spooky little girl.
who turns out
But it-
to be
be
Sabrina.
Yes, a tall girl
Yeah,
holding a small doll.
holding the little girl who's a doll.
Right. We think it's a doll.
I
We don't
think.
know what's happening here.
Yeah, it's very odd. Anyway, we basically get to the point. I think something interesting that we learn is that you have to use telekinesis to control a psychic Pokemon, which
Yes.
is interesting. And then we get to the gym, and Sabrina floats down, and Ash says, "I'm challenging you to a battle," and she goes, "Okay, 1-on-1." And then the little girl, the doll,
Mhm.
says, "If you lose, you have to stay here and play with me." So
Yes,
Ash
and they're
goes,
like,
"Sounds
okay."
good.
Right.
let's
Meaning
do
I'm
it."
going to beat you. Right.
Yeah, and also like that's not a crazy
Yeah, easy.
It seems like a win-win kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So they go, okay. And then she sends out Abra, who is a new Pokemon and kind of looks like a sand shrew, but not.
Oh, interesting. Or like a short, squat Sasquatch.
But smooth, not hairy.
Yes. Yeah. Interestingly, it sleeps 18 hours a day.
Yeah.
But can also do its telekinesis while sleeping.
Which honestly sounds ideal. I would love to be able to sleep 18 hours a day and get my work done at the same time.
Still get your work done. I know. Different from Snorlax, who just sleeps.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, we all have our powers. Pikachu does Thundershock. Abra does Teleport. And then in the middle, Abra evolves.
Yeah.
Into?
Kadabra.
That's right.
Classic. Abra Kadabra. So funny. I wonder if the Japanese translation or if the Japanese name of Abra and Kadabra are similar. Like if they have a similar magician.
Well, it sounded to me like Kadabra was the Japanese original voice.
Oh.
It sounded like that to me. Obviously, guys, we do not look into anything else other than what we're watching. So we have questions just like you do, and someday we may find them out.
But as of right now, there's no way for us to know.
Kadabra uses confusion, which is what we are filled with.
Totally.
And in the psychic attack, it attacks Ash, and then Pikachu is being flung. First of all, Pikachu is relentless and going after Abra/Kadabra, and then ends up being flung up to the ceiling and back to the floor and up to the ceiling and back to the floor.
Yeah.
And Ash can't take it.
It's very hard to watch.
It is actually. I felt really upset by this.
Yeah.
And Ash forfeits and says, forget about it. Goes and picks up tiny hurt Pikachu.
I know.
And the little doll is very excited and says, essentially, great.
Let's go.
And then off they go into this.
They get teleported once again to another village. And this time, it's all made of plastic. And they're in this house. They're trying to eat the food. Ash walks in on a girl taking a bath.
But it's a doll.
And the food is plastic. And they figure out that they're in a dollhouse. I know.
Yes. It's so, I don't know, haven't we all kind of thought about that? Or you're playing with the dollhouse and thinking about what it would be like to live in there. And I don't know, it's so crazy. They see the doll and the giant Sabrina looking over into the dollhouse, and they all go running out as she reaches down and tries to grab them. And they're running down the street towards this giant framed photo of a family.
Right.
And the doll comes out, very odd. The doll comes out and starts rolling. She's always bouncing a ball, and she starts rolling that ball towards them.
And just as they are about to get crushed by this ball
giant,
who should appear but the mysterious bearded man? And his eyes flash red, which is the sign of telekinesis. And he transports them out into the real world once again. Anyway.
Amazing. I will say, though, with that giant ball rolling towards them, and it reminded me of that old TV show, The Prisoner. It's a British TV show. So it was on in America some. But that ball rolls after you if you're trying to escape. Because this man, the prisoner, was also kind of teleported or transported some way to this remote island, other world, and was a prisoner there. And when people try to escape, the ball rolls after them and can recapture them or kill them.
Whoa.
And so it's this whole, like a coastal village, I guess. This thing that I read said that it contains elements of science fiction, psychological drama, and spy fiction. But I feel like all of that is kind of wrapped up in this episode too.
Yeah,
this weird, altered world, and everything is not what it seems, and you're still running and trying to survive.
Yeah.
Anyway, it reminded me of that.
It's crazy.
So,
and the bearded man basically tells Ash, you can't beat Sabrina. She's way too powerful for anybody. Nobody can beat her. So your best bet is to leave and never come back, because the next time you challenge her, you'll be trapped in that dollhouse for eternity.
yes,
Which is crazy.
So Ash is like, forget
I find
it.
it crazy because I thought we were going to find other people in that dollhouse who had challenged her and lost. But nobody's in there.
Maybe no one.
Or maybe they're
has
all just
challenged her.
hiding in the house or something. Anyway,
Oh.
basically.
Or they're alternate houses and
what
never
if,
the twain shall meet.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's true too. I had an idea. Hold on. I'm going to save this idea for when we share our thoughts.
Oh, save it. Okay.
I'm saving it. But basically,
Okay.
Ash says, no way, bearded man. I'm challenging her. I'm getting that badge. I have to get it because I have to enter the championship
The Pokemon League.
league.
Right.
So, and the guy goes, no way. And he keeps using his telekinesis to push Ash back. And Ash
Throw
keeps
him
fighting back. He
And
pulls his
crawling
pants
towards
down.
him.
It's a whole
makes
thing.
him dance.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
But also we
finally,
see that Ash has white
clean underwear.
shorts, and they are clean. That's what I thought about right away. Like, oh, he's been washing his underwear every day. His mother would be so proud.
Only you would notice that because you are also the mom.
Anyway, so he's crawled up and he's touching the mysterious man's foot.
Well,
and
yeah,
he says,
because he's under the telekinesis and he finds a way to push through it and fight back. And he crawls, he's fighting. He crawls to the guy and goes, please help me. And so finally the guy goes, okay, there might be one way that you can beat her. But you have to go to Lavender Town.
and get a ghost Pokemon.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
That's essentially how our episode ends. They are like, okay, let's go. And they take off.
Right. So
For it.
who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? But we're left wondering, mainly, who is that bearded man? That's really
Who
what
is
the
the bearded
narrator
man?
wants us to know.
He reminds me a lot of Brock's dad in the mysterious bearded with a hat and the shadow over the eyes kind of
Yeah.
thing.
So he and the little girl both have shadows cast by their hats.
Yes.
And he looked I feel like he's probably Sabrina's dad. I'm pretty sure that is him in that photo.
Yeah, we can float the theories. The photo has to do with something, obviously.
Yeah.
And when you have that much rage, oftentimes there is something going on internally. There's
Yeah.
something going on maybe at home. There's something happening in your life that needs to be sorted through.
Yeah.
And you need people around to say, hey, can I help you? You know,
Yeah.
do you want to talk about this? Because she's holding something in.
I
Nobody
feel like
has that kind of malice.
something's
just
got to
because.
have something. I bet something happened in her childhood when she was that age of that little girl in the picture. And something happened that basically a lot of trauma. And so she had like a dissociative episode and she was psychic. And anyway, she's become stronger psychic, whatever. And she basically created this doll to kind of like constantly live in this childhood state, like before the bad things happened.
That's probably
And so
true.
she like has split herself in two. So
and so
her being
the doll is herself.
right. And
as
her
well, you're
adult
saying.
self doesn't feel anything. And she's living and speaking through the little girl because that was like the last time she was happy or something like that.
I know, and I hope this gets resolved.
Well, it's
Because
got to be because we're coming back.
Well, I mean, for her as a person, I hope
Ash
that
is the
somehow
only one
they
who
can
can
come
save
to
her.
terms.
I think
know,
so.
I agree.
But
I want to say, too, that what's interesting is that with Ash, the struggle that he went through, really being thrown back and going back to the mysterious man, all of that is just like Pikachu, the way Pikachu kept fighting and fighting to win the battle against
Totally.
Abra and then Kadabra, and how they, in that sense, they both have the same or similar commitment to each other and to their cause.
yeah.
Which I think we saw more clearly in this episode than ever before.
Yeah. And I mean, nobody believes in them. I mean, even that Brock and Misty, because they care about Ash, are saying, give it up.
Yeah,
let's move on.
Protect
it's okay. It. Yeah, there's concern for his well-being, and so they're saying, don't push yourself. But he knows, and in his hard-headed way, could you say, he just keeps going. And so it's good to have people there to remind you that it's okay to take a step back, but it's also good to, to push yourself.
The point is, we all have a bigger purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to have that in mind all the time. And that's how you can forge your path, by keeping your bigger purpose in front of you. And sometimes you do have to step back and, take a look at how you're going towards that purpose, because perhaps the road you're on isn't the right one.
Yeah.
And that's what his friends are there to say, hey, think about this for a second. And then he quickly does and then moves forward.
Right.
So it's a good reminder that we all have to trust our gut and think of the bigger picture.
Yeah. Now, quickly, my other thought about the bearded man is that maybe he is somebody that, okay, I still think it's her dad, but could it also be A, Sabrina's dad, period, who ran away, or B, either Sabrina's dad or another person that Sabrina battled and defeated, and then he had to live in the dollhouse, and then he learned and taught himself telekinesis to escape.
That's right.
And he's been running. He's been on the run ever since, which is why he's jogging.
He's the Yoda. He's literally running. He's the Yoda character because he is teaching everyone how they can tap into their inner psychicness and defeat Sabrina.
Well, kind of. And yet he's also just saying, get out of here. You'll never beat her.
Or
because it took him a lot of persuading to give Ash the idea to get a ghost Pokemon.
That's true. That is true.
Also,
I think maybe he's a marathoner. And then he stops to give sage advice and then keeps
He's
running.
like, I have a lot. I've really got to cover a lot of ground today. I have to train. Do you have any chicken? Like, I'm doing a lot. I've got to bulk up, and I've got a lot to train. I only have 5 minutes of break time.
Right.
But then also, do you think if you have to be telekinetic to do psychic Pokemon, do you have to be dead or something to do ghost Pokemon?
No, of course not.
But how?
They're all just different types.
I know.
It's just how you train. You have to use different parts of yourself.
Yeah, but
train.
so far everybody does the same part, except for psychic people.
I think that this is something we might have to table until we get to the ghost Pokemon.
How can Ash ever expect to catch a psychic Pokemon if he's not psychic? Maybe Sabrina will teach him. Maybe Sabrina will teach him.
We'll have to wait.
In the institute.
You have to fill in those empty spaces within.
I'm going to be thinking about this all week.
We leave, and that's why the narrator ends it with.
What does the narrator
and
say?
And off they go.
The future. They're off into the future, and that's. He said something of like, they're off into the future, and that is where they're headed, or something. I don't know. It's like the
whatever
future
it is, it's always
theirs,
wise,
and that is where
and
they're
we'll
going.
be back.
Yes, it's like okay.
I think this might be a good time for the Poke Wrap Up,
where we hear from you, the Pokemon community.
We asked you to send in your favorite Pokemon memories, stories, inspirations, and then anything you want to say about what we talked about in any of the episodes.
So here are a few of this week's.
Hello, Veronica and Rena. My name is Kyle. I'm from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Canada. I'm such a big fan of Pokemon. I love you guys. I love your show. Veronica, I'm such a big fan of your voice acting. My favorite Pokemon memory is watching all of the Jigglypuff episodes with my mom. We both love Jigglypuff so much. Thank you guys for making the show, and thank you for just creating something so wonderful and positive. Take care.
I remember hiding behind a couch after every episode at 7 o'clock or so in the morning, hoping that my father wouldn't see me as he was getting ready for work. Little did I know that as you came down the stairs, you could see right behind the couch and see me. Suffice to say, I got caught every single time. But that didn't stop me. I just kept coming back down every single day to watch the original Pokemon series. I loved you guys, and I loved the anime.
Hey, Veronica and Rena. This is Nick Simpson from Selma, North Carolina, right outside of Raleigh. Just thank you so much for doing this podcast. It's so fun to hear you guys talk about the episodes week to week, and just a huge part of my childhood. And played the game with my dad, the card game, learned how to play with together, bought decks, packs, all of that. And then just Pokemon in general, playing all the video games, collecting as many cards as possible, and got to catch them all. So thank you once again for all that you guys have done, and I really hope to meet you all soon. Thanks.
A big thank you to Kyle, Nick, and Brandon for sharing their stories with us today. And we want to hear from all of you.
Email us a voice recording or write to us at trainersguidepod@gmail.com.
And try to keep it short, maybe 30 seconds or so. I know that's difficult, but we don't want to have to edit.
Oh, and please include your first name and where you're from.
Well, that about wraps up today's episode of
The Trainer's Guide.
And, as they say, to be continued. We hope that you continue to join us on this journey that is The Trainer's Guide.
As you know, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Wherever you're listening now.
And if you subscribe, comment, and rate the podcast, it helps others find the show and keeps us on the air.
Thank you so much in advance for your generosity and all of your amazing support.
Trainer's Guide is a production of Boom Integrated.
We are co-executive producing this along with
the amazing Adrian Glover
and the incomparable Robin Lai. I'm your host, Veronica Taylor.
And I'm your host, Rena Taylor.
And this has been The Trainer's Guide. We'll see you out there on the road.